Shauna, thank you as always for your passionate and real personal examples of your triumphs and challenges. We're very fortunate for your honesty and for your great, great success and your willingness to share in that success. I don't think a lot of us realize that women right now represent probably less than 1% of contractors to large multinational corporations and to governments. The honest answer is we don't know, because governments and corporations haven't been asking the question of how many women are in their global value chain. So this is a very, very important conversation to begin asking the question, how inclusive are we in our purchasing power in the products and services we source, both at the consumer level and also large procurement organizations. It's my great pleasure to introduce Monique Ward, who's with Accenture's sourcing team. She's really a true leader in the region in thinking about the opportunities that Accenture and other corporations have to include women in their contract competitive processes. So I want to be clear that the corporations we work with aren't doing this for charity. They're not trying to give away money to women and businesses. They are trying to make sure that when they go out to market, they are working with the best of the best companies offering the best total value, the best innovation, the best pricing points. And what they're finding is by including women in that process, they're more successful. And then the women business owners are more successful, they become better customers, and we're all happy. So to be able to hear from Accenture, who's invested heavily in the WeConnect network in helping us build a global portal where the women business owners and the corporations can begin to find each other with the support of organizations like the International Trade Center and leading governments like in India and we hope Jamaica and here in Chongqing and other places. We're doing this work in Europe and in India, as I mentioned, and in Canada. The opportunities are very, very significant, and so to hear from a leading corporation about why you're doing this and how you're doing this and why this is important is a real treat for all of us. Thank you, Mon.
Thanks, Elizabeth. There's not many people that I could follow that make me sound quiet, but I can guarantee you Archana's one of them. And you know, I've sat across the table from Archana in the last couple of days, and had her do this in that voice. And believe me, you look out, I haven't got a choice. I have to go home and put this stuff into place. As a corporation, we know that it doesn't cost any more to engage women as vendors in our supply chain. We know that. That's not up for debate. We know that there's benefits in having women as vendors in our supply chain, both on the buy side, which is kind of my context, and on the sell side, which is the corporation's context. We know, it's irrefutable, countless studies have proved it, it's the right thing to do by women, it's the right thing to do by communities, and it's the right thing to do by children. So it's the right thing to do by boys and by men. What I'm here to tell you about today is how I intend to take this concept, how I intend to put it into place so that when I make recommendations to the corporation I'm standing in front of today, we're giving women the opportunity to compete for the significant amount of business that Accenture purchases. First of all, why women? Supplier diversity is a many-pronged beast, if I can mix my metaphors there. The reason that we've identified women as a target is not only because of the benefits to children and to communities, but because women across borders, and if we think about this in a global or in a regional context, it's a very easily identifiable group. It's much easier to identify a woman-owned business than it is to identify an ethnic minority-owned business. So let's talk about the buy side. This is my context. This is how I'm going to sell this to my team. We've all dealt with supply challenges, and what happens when a supply market falls short? Costs go up. Women represent a latent supply market. They're not typically visible to us. It's not necessarily a market I can always see. So really, this is a latent supplier market that corporations are currently missing out on It's a supply opportunity that we're missing today. We can't afford to do that for any much longer. Women, as we've heard today, are typically more innovative in their business approach, they're more creative, and they're much more likely to have sustainable business practices in the way they develop their business model. Hackett, a leading benchmarking organisation who do research into the success of procurement organisations, have done a study and have shown that not only are procurement savings, which is what we all live and die by, procurement savings aren't compromised by having women as vendors in the global supply chain, but in fact, the procurement return on investment, so the cost of your procurement team as against the savings that team delivers, is better in organisations that have a world-class level of diversity in their supply chain. Now that's pretty compelling. Now there's a cause and effect discussion there that has to happen, and let's have that discussion. But it can't hurt, right? So that's the buy side. Let's look at the sell side. Increasingly, the RFPs that Accenture responds to we're being asked, Accenture as the supplier to other businesses, we're being asked to talk about our corporate social responsibility programs, and we're being asked to talk at length about our supplier diversity programs, more so in the US than outside the US, but this is a trend. If the visionary work that Meg and that Elizabeth are doing is successful, this is going to become embedded, and it's not going to be something we can afford to avoid. So, Accenture's pretty cutting-edge organisation in the main, and there's going to come a time where we can't afford not to do this. I'd rather be at the front of the queue than right there at the back. The war on talent. As a corporation, over time, it's going to get harder and harder for us to attract and retain talent. I know I feel good and I sleep better at night as an employee of an organisation that cares about this stuff. If you have a corporate culture that propagates and demonstrates ethical treatment of women as vendors and works hard to bring women as vendors up through their supply chain and has a depth of a corporate social responsibility program, that's a greater ability to attract and retain talent. And that's going to be a competitive edge for organisations, moving into the next 10 years. Now here's, I think, the most compelling case of all. Think about the case where a corporation, any corporation, let's say a retail corporation, empowers a particular sector of the community by its inclusive practices, its inclusive supply chain. That sector of the community becomes elevated. That sector of the community becomes a new market. That sector of the community becomes loyal to that corporation, right? They become loyal to that brand. They're going to spend with that brand. Let's park that for a second. Women typically control 70 to 80% of household spending. Women represent 50% of the world's population. The Harvard Business Review estimates that by 2014, women will hold $18 trillion worth of buying power. That's 18 trillion. Forget China, forget India, what about the women? $18 trillion. I can't think of a more compelling business case than that. All right, so let's assume the whys are given. We know why. How? What do I do? What do I do when I get back home and I get my feet back under my desk and I've got 250 emails, none of which relate to this stuff? What am I going to do? First of all, I think at a macro level, I need to be talking at length within my organisation about what I'm going to do. Thankfully, my boss has done some of this work already. I really need to take this to my region as opposed to taking this, global, thankfully. So Accenture Procurement is, as Elizabeth has described, working closely with WeConnect to figure out how we as procurement professionals get visibility to women in that supply chain. One of the ways I have to do this, and one of the things Archana has told me I have to do, and she's told you that I have to do this today, is I need to be empowering my people to get access to those women. Fred, my Greater China procurement lead over here, has a daughter. He's here in the room today. He's not over at Sustainability. He's here in the room. He'll attend Women's Day. He's involved in this stuff. We need the men. We need you guys to be involved as well. But more importantly, I need my people and my team to be conversant and erudite and educated in the benefits of a female inclusive supply chain, and I need them building the right processes that enable access for those women. We need to build processes that make it easy for women to respond to the RFPs that we issue. For example, we commonly, if it's $100,000 worth of business, we'll often ask for, $10 million, $20 million worth of public liability insurance. It's a little prohibitive for any small to medium enterprise, and it means I'm not necessarily getting the right supplier. We need to make sure that, the contracts I don't want to put a 30-page contract between me